Hi everyone, my name is Herkeph, and today we're starting off by cowering inside our new house. As in between episodes, the baby that rudely interrupted last episode's building montage has grown up to become a proper delinquent sleeping in other people's beds. But never mind him, because we actually have a few things to do now. Since I'm only allowed to use wooden tools, I'm faced with a few handicaps other than my crippling depression. That being that I'm not able to mine for iron, which I will need for a bunch of my future farms. Therefore, we will need to set something up to get us some iron as soon as possible. I ran around my base for a bit and decided on a place for the iron farm to go. The iron farm I'm building is a design from Lazenine and Iron X04. I will link the video I used to build it. However, this design meant that I will once again need to dig out a 9x9 area, which I expected to be just as exciting and thrilling as the last time I did it. Nonetheless, I did get it done eventually and started work on the most annoying part of the farm, digging an additional 3x3 area going down by 30 blocks. I hate my life, since I didn't particularly look forward to digging that massive 3x3 hole with wooden tools. I decided to start work on the villager setup at the farm first, and this part wasn't very bad at all. Just listen to this upbeat music. Doesn't it seem like I'm happy doing this? But that brief moment of happiness was short-lived, as I then realized that I had procrastinated enough and needed to start work on the 3x3 hole. However, like a miracle, I found another way I could procrastinate. I would dig the 9x9 area one block deeper, that way we'd hopefully not have the iron golems spawning outside of it. I know that this makes absolutely no difference, and I'm just being lazy, but it did allow me some time to not work on the 3x3 hole, so I saw it as an absolute win. I ran back into my house and saw that the villager, who I will from now on refer to as Charles, has too few IQ points to make it through my impenetrable door. I laughed at him and ran upstairs to craft a few more shovels. I then finally started working on the 3x3 hole, which was just as great of a time as I had expected. I ended up running back a few times to sleep, only to find Charles fast asleep in my bed, which was rather disturbing, so I didn't feel too bad throwing him out of it. However, he then decided to disrespect me by walking across my stomach in protest of not allowing him to sleep. I then decided that it would make sense to craft up a bunch of tools to keep in a shulker box, so that I wouldn't have to go back and forth to my base. I then continued digging the hole until I hit a dripstone cave. How lovely! This means that this has turned into an adventure that requires a bucket of water and blocks to fill in the walls. I opted for dirt as I am still a lowly peasant. I then continued work on the hole and filled in the walls as I went and using the water to build downwards. I eventually made my way down a bit and decided that I couldn't be bothered making it any deeper, so I filled in the walls with the peasant block and went on with my life. I went back to my house to sleep once again and was greeted at my door by a friendly neighborhood cannibal, wondering if I had heard of their Lord and Savior. I told him no and started building the part of the farm where the chest will go. I then thought it would be nice to have the room be made out of stone, so I started smelting some. As our stone was cooking, I started working on other parts of the farm by placing down fence gates and crafting up some signs. So I then arose to the delightful smell of cooked stone and decided to go back to work on my chest room. However, my two brain cells seemed to have an argument, which caused me to almost fall to my death. I then continued working on my room with the chests as well as building the walls, which would become my water elevators. I went to bed once more and was once again greeted by a friendly neighborhood cannibal. But for some reason, Charles decided to handle the talking this time. I gave him a light spanking, which sent him to the cannibal's lord and savior. I then continued working on the water elevators, as well as the room with our chest. I was then ready to remove the staircase into the 3x3 hole, since we now had a better way of getting up and down. I then did some finishing touches to the farm, and was faced with the new task, transporting villagers. However, this was a very smooth process, since we had a minecart pickup system for our villager breeder, as well as enough rails to transport the villagers to their new haunted house that they'd soon call their home. Or rather, it should have been a very smooth process if my two brain cells didn't decide to try to transport all three villagers at the same time. But eventually, I did manage to get all the villagers into their designated spooky house, meaning the only thing left I had to do was to trap a zombie in a boat that I had placed down. Trapping the zombie was incredibly easy. So I went to bed early that night to place the final buckets of water to have the farm up and running. However, after I had placed down the last bucket of water, I realized that the zombie I had lured down into my villager hole had died. So I then waited until night, once again, to get myself a zombie that doesn't die randomly. I successfully managed to trap my second zombie and went to sleep once more. Upon my return to the farm, I could hear the zombie that I had trapped. but I then came to the horrific realization that the golems can spawn outside of the spawning platform I had built. However, all I had to do was to elevate the ground by 1 block for a small area and kill the golem to get the farm working properly. I then went to FK overnight and woke up to be presented with some major profits. Now that we have our iron sorted for later consumption in the form of hoppers, we will probably want to tackle another issue, that being my mining and digging speed. In order to actually collect materials for my future farms, I will need to be able to get a decent amount of building blocks, which would take forever if I keep using these unenchanted peasant tools. And since we don't actually have many farms to generate emeralds, I will have to cure my villagers before I start trading with them. That way I can unlock the ultimate stonks. However, in order to cure my villagers, I'll need 2 things, those being splash potions of weakness as well as golden apples. Getting the sugar and the spider eye was quite easy and quick, but I unfortunately came to the conclusion that I would probably need to go to the nether to pick up brown mushrooms. I then decided to build my first nether portal in our base's vicinity and went through. And whilst I was off to get brown mushrooms in hell, I then remembered that I need gold as well, so I grabbed some. The sneaky ninja of a pig variety then ambushed me from above and almost killed me. However, since I'd actually remembered to wear a shield, I did somehow survive. Finding the brown mushrooms wasn't very hard, since they for some reason really like to grow in the nether. And before long, I returned to the safety of the overworld with my pockets, once again, filled with someone else's belongings. I then rushed home to start brewing the potions for the villagers and made some final preparations for our soon-to-be librarians and lured a zombie into its dedicated spot. However, I got a bit more than I had bargained for and had to kill quite a few zombies, and after some trial and error, I managed to get the zombie into the spot that I had dedicated for him. I then decided to take a quick nap to get rid of all the pesky hoodlums, before going back to the basement where I would keep my villagers. I then started the incredibly fun and engaging task of curing villagers and breaking their workstations until I get something I want. Here's a montage of how that went. Okay, I think we get the drift. The main point is that we are now set up with librarians. And there you have it, the 3rd episode of my incredibly stupid hardcore world. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe if you did, and I'll see you in the next one.